Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are finishing up The Merchant of Venice today. We get to hear from Portia one last time in Act 5, Scene 1, and then we're done with the whole thing because there really isn't that much left to go. I mean, we had the whole, at the beginning, we had the lending of the money, and then we had the opening of the boxes to see who gets to marry Portia, and then we had the trial where Portia came in dressed as Balthazar and Nerissa was her clerk, and they saved Antonio's life by saying that Shylock could take a pound of his flesh but not any of his blood, and Shylock got stripped of everything. Even his daughter ran away and renounced her faith and married a Christian, and Shylock has to renounce his faith and become a Christian. But now we're back in Belmont where I guess Portia and Bassanio now get to live happily ever after. But the one thing that they threw in so that there could be an Act 5 was this whole ring thing. Portia and Nerissa had given rings to Bassanio and Graziano respectively and said, if you ever lose these, then we're done. And while the women were dressed as men, they got those rings back from their respective husbands. And since Portia and Nerissa made it back to Portia's estate before Bassanio and Graziano and some others, they got to say oh, don't let anybody know that we were gone and blah, 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 and we're going to play the thing. And yesterday we had Nerissa getting a little overly excited, and she called Graziano out on losing the ring almost instantly upon his return home. While Portia was greeting Antonio and meeting him for the first time, Nerissa was over here giving Graziano a hard time, and there was a lot of back and forth, and had you been there, you would have done the same thing, is basically what Bassanio said yesterday. And Portia's no, I wouldn't have. I would have valued the ring over everything else. And it gets to the point where Portia and Nerissa both give rings to Lorenzo to give to their respective husbands. And guess what? They're the same rings. So when Bassanio and Graziano get these rings, they're like, wait a second, how did you get the rings from the doctor, the lawyer, the doctor, and from the clerk? And both Portia and Nerissa are well, we slept with them. And Graziano is kind of whoa, we don't need that kind of talk here. And Portia says, speak not so grossly. You are all amazed. Here is a letter. Read it at your leisure. It comes from Padua, from Bellario. There you shall find that Portia was the doctor. Nerissa, there her clerk. Lorenzo, here shall witness I set forth as soon as you, but even now returned. I have not yet entered my house. Antonio, you are welcome, and I have better news in store for you than you expect. Unseal this letter soon. There you shall find 3 of your argosies are richly come to harbor suddenly. You shall not know by what strange accident I chanced on this letter. So this is the reveal, is what it is. She's like, come on, you're being silly. Here's proof that I was Balthazar and Nerissa was my clerk, and Lorenzo right over here can tell you that we haven't been here this whole time and that we just got back here ourselves 30 seconds ago. We haven't even gone inside. So everything's settled. That's how we got the rings. And by the way, Antonio, here's a letter that I got, but I'm not going to tell you how I got it, that says that 3 of your boats that you thought were shipwrecked have actually made it safely back to harbor, so you are not completely destitute. And Antonio's like, seriously? That's pretty cool. Meanwhile, Graziano and Nerissa turn this whole sleeping with the clerk thing into a sexual innuendo, perhaps potential role play game that they might go take care of a little while later, and everybody's like, oh, so everything is sorted and we can all be happy. And they're all like, yeah, we haven't quite made it home yet, so let's all go inside and we can share the tales and enjoy some music and have some food and just enjoy the fact that we are married to our loves now, that kind of a thing. And then the play is over. So that's The Merchant of Venice, and it's categorized as a comedy, which I think is interesting because it deals with a lot of deep stuff to be a comedy. Some people would say that it would be number 4 of the problem plays. If they're going to expand the list of problem plays to 6, they would put it in that 4, 5, 6 grouping of potential problem plays, because I mean this does deal heavily with anti-Semitism, which was more prevalent at the time, or that sort of a thing. And I know that at the time of writing it was easy to vilify a Jewish person, which is why they did vilify a Jewish person. But the things that happened to him, at least through today's lens, are really awful, in my opinion. And I feel like when I see a good production of this, Shylock is actually a very empathetic character from my standpoint. And I like Portia up until the point where she takes everything from him and then they make him renounce his faith as well. I think that that's sort of cruel and unusual punishment. Yes, he was adamant about wanting this pound of flesh, but if they were asking mercy of him, for them to show no mercy to him feels a little excessive. I also think that it's a little weird that it's considered a comedy because the marriage happens in the middle of the play. You know, Portia and Bassanio, we don't actually see them get married. I guess you could if you wanted to stage that part, but it's not actually in the text that there's like a ceremony. But that also happens in the middle of the play, and there's the old adage that says that tragedies end in death and comedies end in marriage. This doesn't end in marriage. This ends in people coming home to start their married life, but they got married 2 acts ago, and then there was a trial in between. And it also, this play reminds me just a smidge, bear with me, just a smidge of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because if you've ever read that book, maybe I have a particularly twisted mind, but what I thought was the interesting part of the story is concluded about 100 pages before the end of the book. And that last 100 pages digs into something else that the author wanted to deal with. And that, you know, is one of the themes in the play, kind of, but it's not, I feel, where most of the energies of the book were focused. And here with The Merchant of Venice, this play is about a merchant. And I guess if we want to take the character of Antonio through to his logical conclusion, we need to get to the point where we found out that his boats have not been shipwrecked. But along the way, we have all of this other more interesting stuff happening with all of these other more interesting characters. There's the money lending, there's the pound of flesh, there's the weddings, there's the trial, there's the cross-dressing, there's all this other stuff. And then at the very end, there's this, hey, you gave away my ring. It feels a little meh in terms of endings. It doesn't feel like a strong, powerful, comedic ending. Maybe because some of the stuff before it isn't necessarily so comedic. But anyway, it is an interesting play, and it deals with a lot of stuff, and I'm curious if it lands on other people the same way that it lands on me. So if you have thoughts, please share them. I'd love to hear from you. So anyway, tomorrow is new play day, and we're going to start in on The Merry Wives of Windsor, which if you blink, you'll miss it, because there's only about 2 weeks worth of monologues in that one. So that one's going to be real quick, but it also means longer videos because there's going to be a lot more explanation in between the actual monologues. But anyway, I'll see you tomorrow for new play day. Mwah.